So today we're going to be talking about tools for Atomic, in particular Gleanly, which is the tool we built specifically for atomic research. So if you wanted to give Gleanly a go, the way you would do it is go to glean.ly. It may be clear that we wanted originally to call this Glean, and I really like that name, Glean. We bought the URL and then found out we thought there weren't any IP issues with that, and then we found another product that actually owned the trademark in the UK at least for Glean. So we thought, well, we've got Glean.ly already, so we'll just call it Gleanly now. So if you're ever wondering, are we called Glean or Gleanly? We're called Gleanly, just for legal reasons. And I believe now Google's got a product called Glean, which they can afford the lawyers to fight that IP battle, though, I think, that trademark battle. So when you come onto the website, if you haven't got a repository already, you can just click Start a Repository, and from there you can get started. Enter your email in, create your repository, and it will ask you a few different questions, not too many, and gets you set up. If your organization already has a repository, what you can't do is create an account and then invite yourself to that. Now, that you probably think that's obvious, it's for security reasons, but it is something people do a lot, and I think a lot of systems work like that. You create an account and then you can connect. Maybe you connect and someone lets you in, but because business's data is so important and security is our very highest priority, the way that we work is you can only be invited to a repository, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But if your organization already has one, you need to ask somebody who already has access to Gleanly in that organization to invite you to it, and it's really simple to do. We'll show you that in a second. So if you do have a login already, you can just click on login and log in through there, and I'm actually going to jump over to our development server right now, because this is where I've got a load of test data. You can see lots of test experiments from when we're starting and building new features. We just released merge yesterday, was it, or was it the day before yesterday? But a few people are really happy to see that. And but I've got some example data on here as well, so we'll use this as an example. Now, if you know the atomic process, the navigation at the top will look quite similar to you. You've got experiments, facts, insights, and recommendations, and then finally reports. And as I said earlier, I'm going to leave reports to the end because it's kind of separate. All the information that's caught up between experiments to recommendations is kind of the atomic process, and then we have finally reports, which helps you tell the story about that knowledge. If you want to add extra context, collect different data together, or different facts and insights and recommendations, pull them together into a container on their own, you can add images, text, and all sorts. So I'll show you that at the end. It's kind of separate to the atomic process, if that makes sense. So the reason we have these tabs is these are global search pages. And this means that I can search across all of the recommendations on my all the recommendations on my repository for my organization. I can search all the insights. So if someone says, right, Dan, I need you to build a new shipping tool, I can come in here and say, okay, what insights do we already have about shipping? And learn very quickly a lot of great information. It doesn't matter where that information came from. It's all there, accessible to me. And maybe I'd want to filter it down and say I'm actually only interested in insights that have come from our automotive department, so I can filter using that. We'll talk a little bit about filters and tags a little bit later, but just briefly, you'll notice I added a shipping keyword here, and I'm searching tags, but I've also got these drop-down lists here. And you might think, well, we don't need products, we don't need opportunities, we don't need journeys, or have slightly different needs. These are completely customizable. So the order in which it's shown, highest, recently edited, oldest and newest, I can filter by date. I can say that these should include any of these or all of these, so I can filter to ones that include all of these, so they're exclusive rather than inclusive, if that makes sense. But these filters allow me to be able to filter to the way that I want, so I can build these myself We also have a tag taxonomy, and you could kind of, for most researchers, I'd say it's probably useful to think of these as categorized tags. We call them custom filters because when we're designing products, we try and think about what makes sense to non-researchers and people in the organization who may not understand taxonomy and tags, or their experience of tags are, almost like hashtag loving it. It's not a search thing, it's almost more of an emphasis. So whereas we think of taxonomy in a very certain way, probably the vast majority don't, right? So this is the reason we have custom filters, but think of them as categorized tags. So I can use these different sections to search across our entire repository, or I can find experiments that are containers for facts and then are connected to insights and recommendations. So for a lot of people, a lot of teams, this is probably where you would start. You would create an experiment, you would add knowledge to it, you would share that experiment with colleagues and team members. So let's say we're looking for shipping, weren't we? So let's see what experiments we have on shipping. You can see we've got 8 there. I can filter those further, or I can try and widen my search by adding new keywords and new filters. This is something I always forget to mention, and a lot of people miss as well. It's kind of a bit invisible, but I can also flick over to see just my experiments, just the ones that I've created. So let's have a look at an experiment. So this is an experiment we did a while ago for, it was a moderated user test. We can see at the top here. I can see it was entitled UK basket experience improvements, and I can see a summary of what we were trying to do and as much detail as anyone wants to add, really. There's no limit on the amount of detail here. It's giving background and helping me understand. So this entire dark grey area is helping me understand, giving me context about this experiment, so I know what they were trying to do. I can see links and videos and prototypes. We can also add in documents. I haven't got any examples here. We'll add a couple of photos or something in a minute, perhaps. But we can add documents to the experiment which help people understand and get more context. So someone came along later and said, okay, I want to see the prototype you're working on. They're able to link to it if it's on a separate URL, or download it if you want to upload it on here. I can see who was involved, I can see the authors and the date it was done. I can share this with people. Everything on Gleanly is shareable. So no matter if you're looking at an experiment, a fact, an insight, a recommendation or report, or even searches, we can actually send a search to somebody as well. Let me go back to the insights we did earlier. So I can search shipping, I can filter by automotive, and then I can share that with somebody, and it will, if I share just the link, maybe I want to put this in an external report on Slack or anything like that, it would include all of the variables, everything that I've added in there for that search. So whatever you're looking at, you can share with somebody else if you want to. Let me go back to my experiment there. So this is all the background, all of the context for the experiment itself. But if I scroll down here, here is the actual matter of the experiment. This is all the detail here. So I've come in here because I'm an author. I've come in here fact first. And this is what I was saying earlier about starting with a fact, synthesizing to insights, those insights to recommendations. So you can see this fact here is connected to 2 insights. This insight is connected to 2 recommendations, one positively and one negatively. And it's the same for all of these. So you might notice actually these 2 here, shipping cost deciding factor, and that one there, they're the same. It's because that fact is connected to that insight and this fact is connected to that insight. And you might say, well, why don't you just have a line going from this fact and that fact to the same one? And it's because some of our experiments, I see people with thousands and thousands of facts, hundreds of insights on an experiment. They can get really large. And of course, these facts and insights could be connected to other cards outside of this experiment as well. So it's not practical to show that many connections, and it quickly becomes very busy. This is a mistake we made on the first one, really. And it becomes very clumsy, very busy, and very hard to understand. And actually, when it comes to connecting between experiments, actually impossible, right? So this is how we do that. If I was coming in here and I wasn't the author, I'd actually be likely to come in recommendation first, and that's when I can show. I don't know why that's not loading there. Come on, why are you not loading? It is the development server. It's obviously struggling today. There we go. So I'm looking recommendation first. I can see the recommendations that are being made, the insights of those, and the evidence behind them. And I can expand those and understand those at a greater detail, right? So if I'm looking at somebody else's experiment and other researchers, I tend to want to come in here insight first. So I'll automatically come in recommendation first, but I quite often hop over to the insights tab. And that's because I'm quite interested in what they learnt more so than what they decided to do. So I go, okay, that's interesting insight, and let me have a look at the evidence of that. If I was managing this, I might be looking for signals that that it was well done, this research, what's the quality of those connections. And if you have some questions about that, what kind of signals, what makes a good quality connection, what makes a good well-written insight or fact or recommendation, I really encourage, if you haven't, to watch our advanced atomic research that we did last week, which should be on our channel. So this is a useful way to view those. I can search through all of these as well. So if there's a certain recommendation or certain fact I'm looking for, I can use that. I can use that to search just within that experiment, rather than, in this case, I'm searching across all of the insights. Now, let me go back to that actually, because one last thing I wanted to show you is just because these insights and recommendations are in here, they don't actually belong to this experiment. Facts belong to an experiment because how we learnt them is intrinsic to what they are, right? This user made the statement during this experiment, and this experiment adds a lot of context to that. But this insight and recommendation, they have their lives outside of this experiment. So if I click on this recommendation, you'll see it's actually connected to several insights, and each of those insights are connected to several experiments. This one's connected to 8. Okay, so insights and recommendations have their lives outside, and each of these bits, these assets, are individually shareable. So this recommendation can be shared, this insight can be shared. So I might want to send this to, I'm going to send this to Larissa. So this might be useful for, oops, if I can spell Larissa. This might be useful for an experiment that she's working on. So here's an insight, or if one of the designers perhaps, or one of the developers, they might be asking questions about something. I can share an insight and go, hopefully this might answer your question. It might be with a recommendation. I want to share this with a project owner, a project manager, someone who's making decisions. So I can share this. And if I send this to somebody who doesn't already have an account, so for instance, I'm going to see if, I don't think I've got a Murto on here. So I'm going to send it to Murto. Gleanly. So Murto doesn't have an account on Gleanly at the moment, not in my repository anyway. So if I try and send this, I'm going to send this to Lewis as well, who does have an account. If I want to send this, it's going to highlight, wait a minute, that person doesn't have an account on here. We don't recognize that email address. Are you sure you want to send it to them? Because if I send this to Murto there, it's actually going to create an account for them, and it means that they'll have access to the entire repository. You're not just sharing that recommendation, you're sharing everything it's connected to, then everything that's connected to. They have access to everything. Now the good news is if I click confirm, what that's going to do now is it's going to send an email out to both of those email addresses. So Larissa already has an account, so she'll get an email with a link, click on that straight in, and looking at what I've shared with, so it was Lewis I was sending it to, wasn't I? Sorry. So Lewis will get that email and be able to see that Dan's shared this recommendation with him. And then Murto, who didn't have an account, now does. What it's done is created a read-only account. Now remember, we're not being sneaky there. Read-only accounts are free. You get as many read-only accounts as you want. You can have every single person in your organisation on there. You can have every single person in the world on there if you want as a read-only account. You won't be charged for it at all. But it means that If I've sent that and I go, oh, actually, do you know what? They don't have the access level. They don't have the permission to view this data. They shouldn't have access to that. I can run into the team section and I've lost my mouse now. Where's it? There it is. I can run into the team section and find that address and then revoke access if I want. So I can revoke access. There we go. Security issue over. They can no longer access. Now you might want to do this as well if somebody was, say, had left the company, was on long-term sick, on maternity or paternity. So you might want to remove their access, and then they come back, they rejoin the company, they've come back from having a baby, we can add them back on. The other thing I can do in here is actually change their level as well. So as I mentioned, they're view only, which means in Gleanly, it means that they can view everything, they can search things, they can download things. What they can't do is add or edit. But Murto now, actually, I do need them to be to join me and do some work on a project. I can add them as a contributor, and that means now they can create experiments, they can edit insights, recommendations, they can make connections and do whatever they need to do. There's one level above that, which is administrator, and administrators have a few extra kind of godlike powers, and one of those is that they can manage the taxonomy and add and edit the filters that we spoke about earlier. They can make other people contributors and administrators. The other thing we can do as well is we can lock in experiments, so only those people who are named as authors can edit it, whereas administrators can actually overrule that. In case someone creates an experiment and leaves the company and then you've no longer got access to edit that experiment, an administrator can unlock it. Okay. There's a few other small things that administrators can do. We'll probably come to those later. So all I need to do this is go up to my menu in the top corner here, go to team, and I've got access to all of the team members on here. I can put those in different orders, invite new people as well. So I mentioned earlier about inviting people. People have to be invited to a repository to be able to view it. They can't just create an account and ask to join. So one of the ways you can do it is by clicking invite new member under team, putting their email, their name and job role if you wish, but I need at least their email. Or actually, if you click on invite multiple, I could put lots of emails separated by commas and invite lots of people all at once. So that's probably what you might do right at the beginning. For most people though, the way that they end up joining a repository is when someone shares something with them and it creates them that account. It means then they can go and explore, go and learn, see what's on there, start enjoying making use of that knowledge. Now, of course, they will need your permission to actually upgrade if they want to contribute and they want to actually be a part of creating and managing that repository. But they've discovered it now, right? They're on it. So that's a great thing. So where were we? So we've shared a recommendation with some people. And I'm going to go back to that recommendation very quickly before we start talking about how to create knowledge and how to create experiments. Let's just put ourselves in the shoes of a decision maker or somebody who's had a recommendation shared with them. What they're seeing here is a recommendation for, in this case, to offer free shipping on all orders. And what's great for decision makers is they can see the reasons behind that. They can see the insights, why we've decided that this is a good idea positively, but also the information negatively that connects to it that helps them understand either reasons not to do this or at least considerations why they might choose not to. So we know that users leaving the checkout flow to find free shipping coupons and they're not coming back sometimes. Okay, that's a good reason to do free shipping. That will stop that happening. We know that shipping cost is a big deciding factor. It's a big conversion point. So if we do free shipping, we're probably going to get higher conversion. But we can see here we can't just add the shipping cost to the product price. It's going to make us look uncompetitive. So we're going to have to swallow that cost. Now that may be a reason not to do this, or at least I can keep that in mind. That's something I'm aware of now that I might not have been aware of before. And there may be some evidence that this isn't going to work in Italy. Have we got any Italians in the call today? Put your hand up if you're on. So yeah, maybe there's something in Italy going on that means that maybe culturally they don't like free shipping. I don't know. I'm from the UK, so that could be interesting. Okay, but that could be interesting, but do I trust it? Do I believe it? What faith should I have in this information? So what I can do now is expand the experiments and see which experiments they're connected to. And I can look through these. Now, for some of these people you share this to, they might just want to have a quick look at the recommendation. They can see the insights. They can see there is evidence there. If it's an easy decision to make, and they might just go, yeah, fine, you've done your research, get on with it. I don't need to spend too much time here. So it's a big time saver. But if it's a big decision, an important decision, or they're very detailed orientated as a person, likelihood is they're going to want to try and deep dive and understand everything. The good thing for us is we only need to share this one thing, right? We don't need to write a report that goes into extreme detail and bores the pants off 90% of the readers. And we don't need to worry about lots of questions coming back from our stakeholders going, well, what's the reason behind this? Where to get that information from? They've got everything. They've got as much context as they possibly could need to be able to make these decisions. So I can see it's got some moderated user tests. I can read some facts here. So I can see this person says, when I'm spending this much, I expect free shipping. So they're very much in favor of free shipping. This user here says they just find the lowest possible price and hope postage isn't too much. So if we did this, that person isn't going to be all that impressed. Probably not going to change their mind about us. But yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people, a lot of evidence positively. And we can see here we actually did an A/B test in the UK where we tested it. And how did that go? Well, we can see that conversion lifted 6%, so that's really good. There was an increase in cost of sales by 74 grand, that's quite a lot. But the sales more than made up for it. Look, we raised an extra 172,000 from doing this free shipping thing. So yeah, it did cost us a bit of money, quite a fair whack, but we more than made up for it. So that's a real success. We tested it in France and Melbourne, and then we tested it in Italy, and look, the opposite's happened here. Conversions dropped massively, sales values dropped, and yeah, this isn't great news. Now, my first instinct on seeing this would be to say, well, maybe there's a problem with the test. Maybe there was a bug in there. Maybe it was poorly translated. It wasn't localized well. But perhaps actually, if they all come back clear, perhaps there's something culturally as a British person I don't understand about Italy. So my next step would be to jump on a phone call with some Italian customers. Perhaps I've got some Italian family. I might call them and go, well, what's going on about free shipping in Italy? And they'll say, well, you don't understand, Dan. This is what's going on. Now, what I can do is I can record that in another experiment and then connect that up. So I can say, yeah, actually, there is a thing in Italy about free shipping. This is true. Not just that experiment proves that. There's a reason behind this, and there's some qualitative information on why that is. And I might learn other things that would help me or other people actually better serve that audience. But importantly, when someone comes along in the future and goes, we're offering free shipping all over Europe, why are we not doing that in Italy? They can see why that is, and they can see the evidence behind it. So they're not coming along and being misled. They're not coming along and going, making the same mistakes over and over again, right? We've tested it in Italy. It didn't work. We spoke to Italians. We found out why. We actually came up with some other really good ideas of how we can better serve the Italian audience, and that actually helped us in a few different countries. Maybe that's split up in a whole other piece of work. But importantly, we're not going to have to waste time trying that again. Now, it might be people might say, well, do you know what? We did that. That was 3-4 years ago now. I think things have changed. That's very relevant. That's very... relevance, not the word I'm after. What am I looking for? That's valid, right? That's very valid. Yeah, that's all data now. Maybe it is time to retest that, but we're doing that with the knowledge that it may not work, right? We're not wasting money and time chasing something just because we didn't know we already had evidence for it. So I've talked at length about that. So and this is kind of where we're trying to get to, right? And I think that's really important, which is why I like to talk around that bit before we actually talk about creating an experiment. So if you want to create an experiment, or actually we will do that. well, what we do to add an experiment is we click add experiment, as simple as that. And the first thing we want to do is give it a title, something under 255 characters, something really easy to understand. So it's like what we're doing. So this is Gleanly demo. We can choose different types of research that we were doing. So in this case, I'm going to call it desk research. And if there's anything not on that list that you'd like us to add, just let us know, because it's really easy for us to add. We can give a summary, and the difference between the summary and more detail is the summary is a short 255 characters that's actually shown on the card on that front page on the experiment search. So it helps, a good place to show what you were working on in the shortest way possible. And the thing I'd like to do there, and I actually even put this as the hint text, is I think a hypothesis is a really good format for that. So we believe X, this will achieve Y. We know we are right if Z. Excuse me. So whereas in more detail, we can put a lot more detail. And in fact, we are thinking about actually adding a whole like WYSIWYG thing, so you can put titles and edit that and such like. Most of our customers tend to do their experiment design in a Confluence or Notion or a Word document or something like that, and would rather link or upload it, so you can do that as well. I can add other authors, so I'm going to add Larissa onto this. I can make it so only authors can edit and add facts I mentioned earlier, so we can lock it down. Only authors can do this. And we can add tags as well. So I'm going to add the tag of demo and personas. You guys are all tech enthusiasts today, okay? So I can add discovery. One thing we mentioned and we talked about in the last talk about, and we discussed taxonomy, right? I would say that people should be encouraged, other people who are contributors in your organization should be encouraged to fill out all of these if possible. Excuse me, I've got hiccups from drinking that water. So if it's relevant, I should be encouraged to fill out all of these, so it gives a consistency of taxonomy. And maybe in some cases, do you know what? It wasn't relevant to a particular team. So we'll skip that one, but if possible, you should be able to add them. And you can add multiple on, by the way, so I can add lots, as many as are relevant onto here, just to make it more discoverable. Now, the next thing I have here is the ability to add attachments and linked documents. So I'm just going to grab a, I've got a screenshot here. That's my son absolutely covered in paint, so it's probably not a good one. What I'll do, actually, I'll take a screenshot of me waving to the camera on YouTube. Okay, I wasn't waving. I forgot about the delay. There we go. So I'm going to add this screenshot into here. But we can add all sorts of files, and if you click on accepted files, you can see what's accepted there. If there's a type of file you want to upload that isn't on that list, for security reasons, we kind of are, I don't know what the word is, but we add the file types on as you need them rather than subtracting them, if that makes sense. So we don't want people uploading any old document just in case there's a security risk with that. But more than it's very rare that there would ever be that kind of situation. So if you want to upload any kind of document that isn't listed on there, let us know. We'll get it added probably same day. And I can also link to external items as well. So I can say, well, here's our test design, test.com, and I can link to as many external documents. So if I've got something in Confluence and Notion, any of those kind of tools, I can link to it there. Now I noticed when I was looking over to take screenshots that we had a couple of questions in the chat as well. What I'm going to do, if it's okay, Anastasia, I'm going to come around and answer those at the end, just so I make sure I get through everything first. But just so you know, I'm not ignoring you. So we've got our basic experiment here, but the next thing we want to do is to be able to add our evidence and our knowledge, right? And you'll notice I can add facts and I can import facts, but I don't have an option to add or import insights or recommendations. Why do you think that is? Well, the reason is for that the thing I said earlier, which is insights and recommendations have no relationship to an experiment except through via the facts. The only reason an insight or recommendation is in an experiment is because they're connected to evidence in there, either positively or negatively. And at the moment we haven't got any evidence in here, so we've got nothing to connect those insights or recommendations to. But the good news is we can create insights and import insights. You might remember, if you listened to the last one or watched the last one about advanced atomic, we talked about, and I think we mentioned it in the first one as well, but we talked about creating insights or recommendations as hypothesis. So you might want to create an insight or create a recommendation as a learning objective or as a question from someone in the organization. Should we build this new feature? Okay, well, I don't know. Let's add a recommendation. Let's see what insights, what facts we have already in our repository that support or disprove this. And we can probably, maybe once our repository is rich enough, we might be able to answer that question straight off the bat. One of the tools that's coming very shortly is, and I believe it's only going to be a week or two, maybe slightly more, is the ability to add a recommendation to an experiment as well. So what I mean by that, so it's what we're doing is instead of going fact, insight, recommendation, we're going recommendation, experiment. Quite often, recommendations create new experiments, right? And at the moment, those new experiments create knowledge, and that connects to that same recommendation. But we want to make it more clearly the lineage, right? Where the recommendation started, what came first? Was it this experiment? Was it the recommendation? Was the evidence first? Was the idea second? Etc. So that's coming on very shortly. So we can add recommendations, we can import recommendations in bulk or automate bringing those in. We can do the same for insights as well, just at the top there. But in most cases, when you're in an experiment, you want to import knowledge that you've learnt. So if I click add fact, this is probably the easiest way of creating a fact. Just literally clicking add fact, taking a note. User said this. Oh, if I can spell. It's useful if you can spell anyway, and it's quick if you can spell. There we go. I can add more detail. So as we discussed, I believe it was in the first one, we don't want facts too long. We limit them to 255 characters for a reason. And the reason is we don't want people having to read great big novels to try and understand what it is we're trying to say. Right? Fact is called atomic UX, and the atom is because it's small. It's meant to be small and bite-sized and really quick to understand. So I won't go into too much detail on this. If you want to watch the advanced research, we discussed, should we split a quote from a customer up, or should we summarize it? And the clue, it depends. It depends, right? But if we did have a long quote and we wanted to split it up or summarize it, we can use more detail to add some extra information in there as well. So you've got 1,000 characters. That's not what's shown on the card cover. It's not what's shown at the top. The fact is this top title, but we can put more detail, either more context or maybe some discussion under it. We've got these custom filters again. Once again, people should be encouraged to include as many of these as is relevant, right? It may be if I'm doing more like quantitative research, sentiment's not going to be relevant. But if I'm speaking to customers, we should be encouraged to be recording their sentiment, perhaps, so I can see what's making customers happy, what's making them frustrated. Add personas, journey, add those all in, and I can also add tags as well. So I'm just going to add a new tag. And once again, I can add external links or upload documents. If I upload an image to this, it will actually become a cover for the fact. Let me just close this so you can see what I mean. So can you see that image now as a cover at the top there? And if I add multiple, I can choose which I want the cover to be. So if I click edit there, I can deselect a cover image and remove it entirely, or make another media file a cover image, or I can delete it entirely, of course. So anything can have attachments on it, to add extra context. And imagery can be really useful if someone's maybe, if you, I think very digitally, so excuse me on this, but say you're testing a prototype for an app, someone's struggling with something, it's useful to show a video clip or a screenshot of the bit that they're struggling with, right, and add it there in the cover. So that's the easiest way of adding facts, just taking notes. There's a few tricks if you are taking notes directly. I can say user did this, and one of the things I can do is just press Control and Enter and get a fresh fact. So it's really quick and easy to write a fact. And if I want to add a tag, I can do hashtag, if I can remember where my hashtag is on this keyboard. There it is, tag, and it will actually add that tag in automatically as well. So there's some shortcuts there. That's great, but you've already got a load of data elsewhere. How can I import that information? So we've got this import facts tool here, and we've got three different options straight away. The first is spreadsheet import, and this is probably the most commonly used. So most tools like Miro or Maze or Airtable or any of those kind of tools export to spreadsheet. We can automate it. I'll show you some ways to automate in a second. But because I'm very commonly asked, oh, can we API into something like Miro? Yes, you can. But very rarely do I see a situation in which that's useful. You want a trigger, right? You want something that's happening to make that happen. And normally when you're creating a Miro, maybe doing some affinity mapping, everyone's creating that slightly differently. So it's better to export that to a spreadsheet. And our spreadsheet tool makes it really easy to tell the system what each item means. So I've uploaded that spreadsheet now. I've got all the different sheets within that workbook. And I'm going to go over to this one, which I've named facts. Makes it easy to find. And then I can say, okay, right, this is what each column means. I'm ignoring that first column because that's just some numbering. It's not important to me. This one here is the fact title, that limited by 255 character item. If there was a fact in here that was over 255 characters, it would throw up an error and say, oh, wait a minute, this is too long. But actually, that's all I need now to import all of those facts. I can import that right now. If I go to more detail or to tags, I can add these tags separated by commas, or some tools export the tags into lots of different columns. So we can just go, these are tags, etc. You can bring in filters. One thing it will expect though, if you're bringing in filters rather than tags, is they need to be exactly matching. Remember I said only admins can affect the tags. The filters. Anyone can add a tag, only admins can manage it, but only admins can add and manage filters. They're very tightly controlled for good reason. You don't want people messing up. They're such a core part of the taxonomy and the way that you discover things in Gleanly. So it's not happy with this one here because it doesn't recognize that as a filter, or if this negative was misspelt, it would throw up an error. Well, I can edit that in line, or in this case, actually, that isn't even a fact at all. That's a title, so I can just ignore that entire line if I wish. And you can see I can bring in other things like external URL, so that's the URL title, and let me just put it over here. This is the external URL. There we go. All of those are done. We're happy, it looks good all across the board, and I can click import 17 lines, and all of those items now have been imported. And I have to refresh. This is why I shouldn't use the demo server. There we go. Right, so they're all in there now, all tagged, all filtered. Any attachments or links are all there. Any ones with more details are all there. So yeah, I barely need to do anything now because a lot of the work has already happened. Other ways to import. So we've got the Zapier integration, which is the easiest way to API from one tool to another. So we've got an open API, so we can connect to lots of different tools. We think Zapier is one of the best possible ways to build really quick connections and rules in your own way. So you're not having to do it our way, you can do it your way. And almost any tool that you'll be using will be on there. It's over 5,000 products that they're connected to. It is a third party, and it's a freemium product. So for the most people I speak to, they doesn't cost them anything. If you're a very heavy user, there is a charge there, but you probably already got it as part of your company. So if you need to integrate in something direct, that's fine. Just let me know and I can help you with that. But with Zapier, it means that you can just pick what you want to do. I want to, every single time that someone makes a comment on our, leaves a review, I want to bring that into a voice of customer thing. At the end of every month, I want to bring in performance data or sales data. There needs to be a trigger, right? The other thing you can do is send data out. So perhaps I might want to say every time that there's a recommendation that's been approved, I want to create a card in Jira just instantly, right? I don't want to have to do that manually. That'd be a slow, boring process. That's where these Zapier integrations really come into their own. And the third one's a little bit different again, really. So this is our Chrome extension, and this sits in your Chrome browser. It means that you can select a piece of text, press the little G icon, and it will bring that in as a fact into whichever experiment you need, whichever experiment you choose. And you can bring attachments and screenshots and all sorts through that. But importantly, it also retains the source of where you found that. So I find that's really useful for desk research, for if you're going through app reviews, it can be really good because we want to bring in that we've gone up in favour of our customers, that our star rating has improved, but also there's some really interesting feedback in there. There's a lot of rubbish, so I don't want to import it all and just get lots of nonsense, but there's some real key ones that I want to be able to select and bring in. So that's where that comes in really useful. Hopefully you'll follow me all well with that. Put any questions into the chat and I will get to them shortly. So we've got all of our information in here. We've already got quite a lot of tags actually, but there's still some work I want to do. So before I start connecting up to insights, I want to go through and just do a bit of taxonomy and a bit of tidying up on this. So for instance, I might want to edit a particular fact, and I can go into a particular fact, edit it, add tags on, change the text, add more detail, upload attachments, whatever I want to do. I might want to tag several of these, right? So that's going to be annoying to have to edit each one, isn't it? So what I can do is actually select multiple and then connect or tag any of these. So I'm going to add all of these to Android app. Now I can actually select all. So what happened is when I clicked on that little icon, do you notice a banner popped up at the bottom there? And one of the options on there is select all. So if I select all and then say actually all of these are for client OLX. There we are. They're now all tagged with that. That's great. And what I want to do next is find all the ones that mention coupon, and I want to select all of those and then tag those with voucher, because we don't call them vouchers here. We don't call them coupons, we call them vouchers. Great, that's all done now. So what I'm showing you there is when I search or filter using that top section there, the search section, and I select all, I am only selecting the ones that search there. So it makes it really quick and easy to get all of these tagged up how I want to. Okay. So I'm happy with all my tagging now. Let's start connecting some insights. Now I prefer to go one fact at a time. As you could see earlier, I can select multiple and connect to insights all at one time, but I prefer to consider each fact, normally with my cross-functional team as well, and discuss what do we think this means. Now I can add an insight, and I can either create a new insight entirely. I think it means this. Once again, refer to the last video about how to write a good insight and some best practices around it. That certainly isn't one. So I've created this new insight and I can connect that positively or negatively. So that means that the fact either is evidence for this or against this. But I can actually access all of the insights across our entire repository. And we're having some dev server issues, I think. There we go. So the I can find, right, I want to find any insights around coupons. Here we are, connect to this one here. You can see this is another test one. It's pretty rubbish. But I've got a few different insights here, which I think are relevant to that fact. And so I can connect all of those up. And actually, let me edit connections. So if I want to make that negative instead, I can just click disprove, just so like that. And I can do the same for recommendations as well. Or I could go across all of these, and all the ones that mention coupon, I could all connect up to this one. Now you might be wondering, we did discuss this in the last video, but you might be wondering why I've got an insight that just says coupon code. That's not a very good insight, is it? But what I'm actually using this coupon code insight for is for affinity mapping. I'm not sure what the insight is yet. I've got lots of insights that sound similar and I think are all relevant, and I'm just not quite sure what the insight is yet, right? So don't be worried about creating really simple insights and then later on you go, well, do you know what? Now I actually look at this. Now I view this coupon code one. I've got some ideas of what I think it might be. So I could go in there and edit this and turn this into a proper insight. I might have more than one idea, and what I can do is actually click duplicate here. And what it does, it creates an exact match of that, but I can say, I've got a different idea. I've got a different idea. There we go. Now that's all fine, but that different idea is great, but some of that evidence that was connected to that insight isn't actually relevant to this new idea. So most of it is. So what I can do here is I can actually click on here, connect to facts, go to connected and experiments, and maybe I want to remove that one. It's not relevant to this idea. Okay. So it's really easy to do that. The other thing I can do, if I've got several insights that 2 or more, up to 25 that I think are the same, I can merge them together as well. And what happens if I merge these together, I can choose whether they're coupon, that coupon code insight, or this, I've got a different idea insight, or I can create a new one. And I can go through, change as much as I want, but it's collected together all of the filters, all of the tags, any attachments or any uploaded documents, all of the connections it has across all of those different insights I just merged. It will merge together all into one, so it makes it really easy to do that. Great. Now, one last thing I want to show you. Actually, let me quickly connect I'm going to quickly connect to a recommendation just to show you something here. Another wonderful recommendation. So now sometimes, actually, do you know what? I'm going to do this slightly differently. I'm just going to find a high score insight, because I'm hoping this one's connected to some recommendations. Here we go. So I've just brought this insight into this experiment, and actually it's connected to several different recommendations. Well, that's great, because some of those recommendations are useful for this this experiment, but some of them aren't. So I'm actually going to hide some of these. So you might have noticed this icon here. I don't want to delete this recommendation because it's still a useful recommendation for somebody. It's still connected to that insight, but it's just not relevant to this experiment. So what I can do is actually hide it from this, and I can do that to an entire insight if I wish. So that's disappeared now, and it means that if other people come in here, they're not going to be, wait a minute, why what's that insight or recommendation got to do with this experiment? It doesn't. It just happens to be connected to evidence. But if I do want to see those again, I can click on this show hidden cards icon, and I can see those again, and I can even bring them back if I should wish. Okay. So that's a quick overview of how to create an experiment, and I'm just going to quickly show you the tags and taxonomy tools. You have to excuse the noise in the background. I think that might be the babysitter turned up, who's my sister, and very loud. I have to go and turn it off in a minute. So, right. So we're looking, there's two sections here that we need to look at. First is tags and taxonomy. The second is custom filters. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a difference between them. They both work as taxonomy, but, and excuse all the noise, It's all just kicking off in my house. It must be time to go for dinner, I think. So what I can do here is I can change the order of these. I can search through them. So I want to go to the newest ones that have been added. And this is something as the manager of the taxonomy of the repository you want to do fairly often, right? You want to come in here and see what tags people are using, which ones are useful and which ones aren't. So I've got these new tags I created earlier, and I can come in here and go, actually, I think these should be deleted. I think they should be, there's other existing ones that that make more sense. But more than anything, what I want to do is define them. So by defining a tag, anyone can add a tag, but only an admin can define it, right? Only an admin can manage this. So I can say this is what a demo tag means. And now anyone coming along and using these tags will know that this is an official part of our taxonomy because it's been defined, and that can only be done by the people managing the repository. So if I take multiple tags here and merge them together, it's the same as when we were merging those insights earlier, right? I can create a new tag entirely. I'm going to create new tag 3. Anywhere those tags were being used are now going to be updated to new tag 3. You can see that actually the number didn't go down. But if you might see that number go down, if I've added 3 tags together that all were worth 1, all being used one time, you might notice that number goes down to 2 or 1. It's because that tag was used, those used different tags in the same card. So I can add tags from here as well. I find it's fairly uncommon for people just to sit there and add tags. You might want to do that, especially if you're building a taxonomy from scratch. But normally it's a bit more like what they call a folksonomy, where people, through use, your taxonomy starts to grow. The important one, I think, that you do need to sit down and really consider, and definitely watch our previous video on advanced atomic UX and taxonomy for this, because a lot of the core taxonomy for your organization, like for instance, we've got several different products in this imaginary organization. We've got automotive, energy, pets, right? It makes sense for us to have a filter for that. And you want to really consider these ones because these will be the core ones that you want to use. So I can create as many filters as I want and as many options underneath that as I want. And I can also apply those to different parts. So you can see product is applied to experiments, facts, insights, recommendations, and reports. Whereas platform is only applied to experiment, fact, and report. Sentiment is a good example of one that only makes sense for facts. So it's only connected to that. We've got different colors. We can add definitions to help people understand how we're using those, and they, as I said earlier, they should be the core taxonomy. It's the backbone of your taxonomy, the custom filters. So the final thing I want to show you before I just have a quick look over the questions and then give you your evening back is reports. So everything we looked up to now is your atomic repository. It's where people can create ideas, create knowledge, connect those things and share them with each other. But there are times when you want to be able to add extra context. Now, that's what reports are designed for. They're containers in which I can grab any number of insights, recommendations, facts or experiments, pop them into a report. And I could just share them like that, right? I see quite often people going, right, here's a container, a report that has all of our insights for this new project we're working on, or on a certain subject. So people know that for the sales team, they can always come to this one report and they'll find all of their knowledge there that's relevant to them, that someone's curating, right? They can go and search for specific things if that answer isn't in there, but someone's curated this particular thing for them. The interesting thing is it's always up to date. It's always connected to the most newest research and the newest evidence, so they're not being misled by old reports or missing out on things. But the other thing we can do as well is we can tell a story. So let me quickly pop into this one here. So we can add text, documents, we can add videos and imagery, whatever we want to tell a story. And we can make it really simple as well, because we can say, right, we did this experiment and we learnt this insight. Now, if anyone says, okay, well, that's interesting, but I want to know more about that experiment, they can just click on it and they're straight there. It's all connected to the live repository. If anyone wants to know where did that insight come from, they can just click on it and they can see everything behind it. And what's important is it's all connected to the live repository, which means that we can show the latest data. However, that isn't always useful. If you go back all the way to our first Atomic October discussion, it was about reports, right? And one of the problems with reports is they're a snapshot in time. But a snapshot in time can be useful. We might want to show this is what we knew then. This was this report was made on the 14th of February this year. It's important that I show this is what Dan knew when he created this report. When we were making these decisions, this was the evidence we had back then. And so I can publish it and show that data. It locks that data as it was, but it's just a click and a toggle to see today's data and see how that's changed and understand what may be different now, which is useful just to know, but also means I'm not being misled by old data. It's really easy to add things in here. I can just click add a section. I can add in text, buttons, dividers, and videos, files, whatever I want to add in there and tell a story. But also, we're actively building this as well. We're actively adding to this. So if there's anything you'd like to see, let us know, because we're always making this bigger and better. So that was a real quick, nearly managed to keep it to an hour, gone over by 10 minutes, run through of Gleanly and how it works. And I'm just going to quickly have a look at a question. I think we had one from Anastasia. And she said, so if insights are of the same order in the taxonomy, wouldn't you need to adapt the wording once new evidence comes in? I'm not sure I understand that question there. But she's clarified, e.g. free shipping is good in most markets apart from Italy. Okay, yes, that's a really good question. You could say that. In this case, the way that I've approached it is just by showing evidence against it is this isn't true for, where's the free shipping one? Got a coupon, that's why. Let's find shipping. So what I've done here is I've put evidence against with connecting it to the Italy experiment there. And yeah, but you absolutely could put that in there, maybe either in the title, or at least in the description underneath. And one of the things I'd like to do positively is if it's been tested in certain countries, maybe have countries or market or territory as a filter. And every time it's tested in a new territory, you can add that filter on. So I could see at a glance, it's been tested. I haven't done that on this one, but we should do that, right? Haven't even got country as an option. So if you imagine I had country as a filter here, I'd be able to see at a glance, this has been tested in France, in UK, in Melbourne, in Italy. And I might want to remove it from the Italy one so people don't think this is true for Italy. So yeah, there's different ways of approaching it. But I think your idea of just kind of giving a bit of clarification, yeah, that isn't, it's always finding that balance of context. What adds important detail without the problem of losing clarity. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So hopefully that's useful. I really appreciate you guys all coming to listen to me today. If anyone has any questions they haven't had a chance to ask, or if Anastasia, I didn't answer your question properly, or you didn't understand my answer, so don't blame you, because I don't think I explained that at all well. Please get in contact. You can reach me at LinkedIn. You can find me at Daniel Pidcock. If you go onto the Gleanly website, we are there as well. And you can just click get in touch and you'll find us, find several different ways of connecting with us. There's live chat on there, you can send a message, but also you can book a meeting, and I do really encourage you to do that. If you think Gleanly might be interesting for you, you'd like to give it a go, book in a chat. We'd love to help you understand it, talk about what's right for your team, what works, what doesn't work for your team, how we can help you with that, and actually get you started with a free trial as well. So if you wanted to give it a go, you can click start a repository. You get 30 days free trial as standard, so anyone can jump on there and use that. And we've also got 2 different ways of helping customers as well. So if you want, you can just use the software, get on with it. You feel like the discussion we've had today is enough to get you started. Maybe you're a small team and you don't need a lot of support. But we also have a fully managed service as well. And I have to say, it doesn't matter whether you're a small team or a large team for that. It's not an enterprise service, it's a fully managed service. But definitely larger teams do really love that service because it means that we're actually there to help you with onboarding, with training. Whenever you have new people join, they can come to us and we would look after them and get them trained up on Gleanly. But also we would have regular catch-up sessions and even be on hand to help with ad hoc support, not just to do with Gleanly, but with knowledge management. So a lot of people treat it as really cheap consulting. You know, people will say, I've got this experiment, I'm not sure the best way to break it down. Or we need to do a workshop on our taxonomy. We will handle that for you. We'll actually run that workshop for you. So if you think that might be of interest, please jump on. We'd love to see you on there. And I hope to speak to more of you in future.